we're getting a little silly. We're silly in this episode. Happy Pride.
Hello, and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. My name is Klaudia, my pronouns are she, her, and you can find me on social media at Klaudia Says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A Says.
And my name is Ollie. I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. That's fresh with a PH. Welcome. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. I would also like to say, since we recorded our last episode, we did get some very sad news about the Winchesters.
Yeah, happy Pride. They killed Carlos.
Oh no! They it was a very like scary headline. It was like the Winchesters officially dead in the water. I think what that meant was basically like they started to shop it around, and like Warner Brothers, which already had a connection to like through the CW, like Max didn't want it, and then like Jensen Ackles' production company had a first look deal with Amazon Studios, and they didn't want it, and so now it's dead. So
this is so fucked up. This is like a national tragedy.
Yeah,
like, I need the day off work. We need to put the flags at half mast, guys.
Especially because we're going to talk about 2 episodes today where there's a lot of John Winchester slander. And actually, slander's the wrong word, because slander means that it's fake, and this is real. This is John Winchester is an asshole, but I was thinking about the Winchesters.
This is just John Winchester reporting. This
is John Winchester Prime, not John Winchester. Speaking, also Pride Month, but also the month of the Spider-Verse. Oh my god! Dean... Is the Winchesters just the supernatural version of, isn't there Spider-Verse?
Okay, so, see, I was walking with you. And I see where you're going with this, but I feel like we can't say that any sort of multiverse is like the Spider-Verse.
But I'm just saying, that was Dean Winchester and Jensen Ackles really having a metatextual conversation with the audience was exactly what the Spider-Verse movies do about what is a canon event in Star Wars? what is a canon event in Supernatural? And he's like, no, if you had the chance to change your fate, would you?
So he's saying the canon event that he's trying to circumvent is his dad being a dickhead?
The canon event is the demon killing his mom. So
okay, spoilers for Into the what is it called? Across the Spider-Verse?
But it's very minor spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse, because it is kind of in the trailer, but like
dude. No, I mean, I guess it's kind of true. I feel like I feel like the Winchesters, it doesn't have the cohesiveness that I think that I feel like comparing any sort of supernatural based property to anything in the Spider-Verse universe feels particularly hateful. That being said, I see the point you're trying to make. I'm walking with you.
Okay, to be fair, you know when they took that painting and they like tried to improve it, and then it was like laughably horrible. I can't remember
like
what the
art
thing
restoration.
The failed art restoration. Yeah, like comparing any piece of media, even when it's only marginally better, and the Spider-Verse is like the Mona Lisa. Comparing any piece of media to the Supernatural version is like comparing it to that fucked up art restoration version. I'm just saying that the Winchesters, it could have been something, but we can't have that. So
Winchesters, I'm so sorry this ugly ass bitch television would do this to you. We are self-funding it. We are gonna bring it back. And
what is Jensen Ackles gonna do with himself?
No,
like, he
has
to play Batman. Like, I mean, he's on The Boys, so that...
Didn't he die on The Boys? I don't know. I haven't watched The Boys. He might have.
I have no fucking idea.
No. I need... Can we get Jensen? Is it too late for Jensen Ackles to be in the Acolyte?
Okay, I have to say,
Jensen Ackles is my flashback still in Geos.
Here's the thing. There, at some point, listen, we already got Emily Swallow. The possibility of a supernatural actor being in Star Wars gets closer and closer every day.
No.
And it's not going to be Jared.
No, because imagine if that happens. Imagine
I would kill myself.
Jared Padalecki in Skeleton Crew.
I think that would be where I end it.
No, but it's okay. He's gonna kiss Jude Law. Sorry, guys. This is a lot of like Star Wars insider info. Insider info is a strong term, but a lot of niche Star Wars knowledge that we're professing today. Wow, we found a way to include Spider-Verse, include Star Wars, include Supernatural. Do you want to throw in like any sort of? Is there any sort of anime reference you would like to make? Now's the time.
I mean, I would make a Trigun reference, but I was going to mention another thing that horrifyingly made me think of Supernatural. I was speaking of Pride, I was looking at the Netflix Pride collection because fun fact, I don't watch any shows on Netflix anymore because they cancel everything. So the only time I ever go on Netflix is to watch Supernatural for this fucking podcast. Mm-hmm. So I open up Supernatural. I open up Netflix and it's like, here's our Pride collection. You are. And I open it and I start to look at it and it's like, wow, there's a lot of shows here that you canceled. And then I get to the family-friendly animated shows. And you want to know what show was there? Voltron, Legendary Defender.
Everyone's favorite gay pride show that famously has really good representation that no one has any problems with. It's a lot like Supernatural. It's the Supernatural of Netflix animated shows.
No, and it really is, because it queerbaits you the whole time, and then it does something that is technically gay representation, but is still extremely homophobic at the end. Like, it really... And here's the thing. My first fucking thought was, okay, so by this same metric, if this is what we call an LGBTQ show, just because there are some gay characters there, whether or not the representation is good, whether or not we have whatever, then, you know, because Legend of Korra was there as well, and I was like, well, they made her them bisexual, like, in the last half, but okay, fine. And I was like, okay, so by that standard, then unfortunately, sadly, Supernatural would also have to be there.
I mean, because, right?
I mean, like, it's not just Castiel. Like, we got Charlie. Like,
exactly. Yeah. No, it's really challenging. No, because you've said this before we started recording, and I've been thinking about it. I'm just like, I don't even know what to, like, say. Like, yeah, I mean, by all standards, it should be.
Here's the horrible thing. I made a TikTok about it, and, like, the first 3 comments was everybody saying the same thing, that Supernatural would have to be there if Voltron is. So, what year is it? 2018?
Listen, are we saying that, is Castiel kind of Shiro-coded?
Please don't say those words to me. Please, you can't.
Is Dean more Shiro-coded? Which one do you think?
I have Shiro fan art on my wall to this day. You can't do this to me.
And you know what? I'm tired of pretending that Shiro wasn't the Slay King of the show.
And actually, technically, then Shiro would be the Dean-coded one, because he's the one who lives.
Yeah, and people also ship him with his brother-like figure a lot. I'm gonna get the sheets real mad at me in this episode of the Mysteries Podcast.
Oh my god. We can't be doing this.
Is Sheath just the Wincest for a different generation? Generation's a strong term. A different demographic, maybe.
Oh my god, we can't be
doing this. Guys, we're gonna get doxxed. I love this. We've talked about everything important.
Voltron.
That's it. That's the only important thing, guys. Happy Pride to Voltron is the point.
Happy Pride Month. If you said you want to make an anime reference, if you want to watch an animated mecha show that has actual gay people the whole time and is actually good and isn't homophobic and doesn't drop off in the quality of writing and is racist like 3 seasons in, I need you to go watch Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. You do not need to have watched any other Gundam TV shows, just go watch Mobile Suit Gundam: The Wish from Mercury. Season 1 is free on YouTube, with only the subtitles. Unfortunately, if you want to watch with a dub, it's on Crunchyroll. Boo. I promise you, yeah, fuck Crunchyroll. All my homies hate Crunchyroll. That's what piracy is for. I didn't say that. That was a joke. That, for legal reasons, that is a joke. All I'm saying is, in this show, we talk about how Supernatural is both homophobic and gay. But if you want to watch actually good television, you can watch Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. It's about lesbians. It's about lesbians doing war crimes. There's a MILF. It's the story of the Tempest, but there's the story of the Tempest, but it's also Revolutionary Girl Utena, but also they're in Gundams, but also it's Norse mythology, but also it's New York's Hottest Club has everything, and Voltron wishes. Anyway,
you know what? I also have a recommendation. If you're looking for a show, this is not anything to do with anime, but if you're looking for a show that has some aspects that may or may not be supernatural, you're not entirely sure, and it definitely has gay people from the very beginning, you should watch Yellow Jackets. It's really good, and there's a lot of women, and there's also a lot of MILFs.
Do you know how scared I am to watch that show? Because as soon as I start it, they'll cancel it.
No, I'm like, because Klaudia, it'll also fuck you up. Like, I know you're gonna be like, girl, what? Like,
no, I was gonna say that also about Witch of Mercury, where I was like, that's the most fucked up thing I've ever watched.
No, dude,
crazy.
Dude, Yellow Jackets is crazy. I would recommend it. There are lesbians, not to say it like it's like a tally. Oh, there are lesbians, you should watch it. It's also a really good show.
Actually, I think we should. You know what? Even if it's bad, if it has lesbians, you should watch it.
So now let's talk about 2 episodes. And you know what else I want to say? Happy Pride, and also Merry Christmas, because the second episode we're going to be talking about today is Supernatural's first Christmas special. We'll talk about that in a bit. First, let's get into the other episode.
It's not Christmas in July. It's Christmas in Pride Month.
Yeah. This is Christmas for gay people.
Which, you know, November 5th, 2020, that it was kind of Christmas for gay people.
I mean,
think about it.
Completely different time of year, but I respect what you're saying. I understand what you're...
Yeah.
No, I get it. No, I'm walking with you. Let's talk about this episode, though. It is episode 7 of season 3. This is the 51st episode of Supernatural in general, though. God damn, we watched so many episodes of this show.
Ollie, how many episodes do we have until Lazarus Rising, aka Castiel?
Fuck, I don't know how to do that much math, babe. I don't know.
Not that many.
Not that many.
Because as a reminder for our listeners, season 3 is half as long as the rest of the seasons because of the 2007 writer's strike.
Yippee!
Season 3, let me see.
Sorry for not being good at math, guys. I am...
Do you think I am?
No, but I trust that you can Google it. It couldn't be me.
Okay, so there's only 8, well, I guess counting Lazarus Rising would be 9 episodes.
Well, it's 8 episodes until Castiel. And
yeah, it's 8 episodes until Castiel. So that's only 4 episodes of our show.
Fingers crossed, unless something crazy happens.
Like the Winchester's coming back?
Like the Winchester's coming back, that would be great. Then it's like, sorry guys, they actually dropped a surprise season. It's a lot like the secret 4th episode of the last season of Sherlock.
We can't. We just ran the Tumblr gamut. We talked about Voltron. We talked about Sherlock.
Quick, guys, why wasn't River Song in this episode? I figured I'd get them all in there.
Here's the thing, though. At one point, when he's talking about the wreaths in the second episode, and he's like noticing things, I was like, that was very Sherlock coded. I was like,
no,
20. That was a very 2012 sentence that you just said, Klaudia. No,
because you know what? I hate to say it. The writing in these episodes is smarter than the writing in Sherlock ever thought it was.
Well,
Stephen
that
Moffat,
bar is low.
It's not working for you, babe. Anyway, I can't. We need to talk about this episode.
I can't believe we just said that episodes of Supernatural were better than Sherlock. I mean, you're right.
No, okay, because if you guys haven't watched H. Bomber Guy's video about why Sherlock is bad, it is a masterpiece. It is one I watch at least once every 2 months. It keeps me young.
I love Stephen Moffat slander all day, every day.
Do you remember Jekyll?
Please make me forget that.
Okay.
Why would you?
All right.
We gotta get into that.
We gotta get into it. Where's the Jekyll Supernatural crossover? That's what I know people talk about Superwholock. I'm talking about Super Jekyll. When's that happening?
No.
Jekyll Natural. Anyway, okay. We have to talk about this episode. It's called Fresh Blood. Because it might have to do with vampires. This is a very fun, funky little episode. Here's the thing I will also say about these two episodes. Plot-wise, they're fine. I think that this episode is overall better. It's a Sarah Gamble episode, so, take that for what you will. I feel like this episode is an actually really good episode, and it rounds off a lot of storylines that we have had. And I feel like it has a somewhat satisfying ending, but you can also tell that they were like, fuck, we have to resolve this. It feels a little bit rushed, but it's not bad. But I think it hits a lot of really good emotional beats, which we'll talk about.
They knew that writer strike was coming. They were like, we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah.
We gotta wrap it up.
While we still have the writers we need to write something that's good, that's at least halfway decent.
Shit.
Yeah. So, we start. It's the evening. Who do we see but Bela? She is walking to her car. It's nighttime. She's parked by like a bridge or like I'm like, where are you?
They
what
have definitely had openings and stuff by this same
exact bridge. I'm pretty sure it's
before.
I'm pretty sure it's the bridge from like episode 2 or 3 where there's like the Hook Man. I think it's the same bridge from that episode.
I think it's the Hook Man one. I was like, I definitely remember this shot.
No, I know. It's crazy. But Bella is walking to her car and she looks over and she sees someone standing by the window. And she's like, who are you? And he's like, you're Bela Talbot. And she's like, okay. And I don't know who you are. I'm sorry, you've caught me unaware. And they're having this little a bit of banter, because Bella has banter.
A bit of banter.
But she's like, I don't know who you are. You've caught me unaware. And he's like, I'm Gordon Walker. And she's like, oh, I do actually know your name. I heard that you were, in jail. And he's like, well, I got out. And she goes and kind of reaches into her car and then looks surprised. And Gordon's like, oh, are you looking for this? And he's holding this like little pistol and he points it at her. And he's like, I know that you were in Massachusetts with the Winchesters because I know they were there. Tell me where they are. And Bella's like, I don't take nicely to being threatened. So if you want to make...
They have such an insane dynamic. No,
literally.
Like, of all the side characters to put in one scene together, these are the craziest two.
These are the two cuntiest, honestly. They had, like, the funniest little conversation.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
She was like, well, I don't do well with being threatened, so maybe if we want to, like, make a deal, then I'll help you. And Gordon looks at her for a minute, and then he's like, okay, I'll give you $3,000 for the information. And Bella's like, I won't even get out of bed for $3,000. You kidding? I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. And he's like, okay.
I love a woman who knows her worth.
No, exactly.
Lean in.
Women need to be charging more for everything. But he's like, oh, okay, well, I won't shoot you. And she's like, okay, shoot me. Then you'll never find out where they are, so go for it. And he kind of hesitates. And then she looks at his belt buckle and sees a mojo bag. So, love. And she's like, okay, well, the $3,000 and that mojo bag. And he's like, okay, but this is centuries old. It's not. And she's like, yeah, and priceless. I want it. Come on, it's an even trade. And Gordon obviously is, like, very hesitant to depart with this. But he's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Here. And then she pulls out her cell phone, dials the number, and goes, hey, Dean, where are you?
Again, so cunty of her.
It's so funny. And then it cuts and we see the title sequence. It's like Supernatural, which is really funny to me because I'm like, first of all, spoilers for later in the episode, the way that does work, if I was Dean and Bela of all people who I've just had mad beef with, calls and is like, where are you? I'm not being like, oh, here's my fucking coordinates. Like, you're so fucking dumb. He's
very stupid.
No, like, that was, even for him, like, he should know she's up to shit. It's humiliating. I'm just like, I was gobsmacked by how stupid he is. I know you're
That's an evergreen clip right there.
Mm-hmm.
Gobsmacked by how stupid Dean is? Yeah, that's every episode.
Anyway, we cut back. Sam and Dean are in a warehouse, and they're hunting. It starts in media res, and they see this guy, and he's on the ground, and he's bleeding. He has a huge, like, bite mark in his neck. They run over, and Sam's like, okay, it's okay, we're gonna help you. Where'd she go? And the guy kind of gestures as he's, like, bleeding out. So Sam and Dean run over into the direction that he gestures in. Or Dean runs over. Sam stays there and is like, okay, we're gonna get you help. And Dean pulls out a machete and is, like, looking around. He can't see this vampire. And he's like, okay. So he slices, like, a slit into his arm so his own blood will start bleeding out. And he's like, oh, you smell that? Come and get it. And then a female vampire, like, blonde hair, very pretty, like, jumps out and starts attacking him and, like, starts biting at him. But it's okay. If he doesn't ingest it, then he won't get turned into a vampire. But she bites him, but he injects her with a little syringe that we later find out is dead man's blood, which is very toxic to vampires. And she gets knocked out and is on the ground. And then, like, Sam walks in and he's like, oh, dude, you cut it really, really close there. Like, don't you think that was a little dangerous, like, using yourself as bait? And Dean's like, yeah, well, whatever, it worked. Not a big deal. Which is foreshadowing, because you know,
he's in his live fast, die young, bad girls do it well era.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Dang.
So then we see this young woman sitting tied up. It's the same girl, the blonde girl, who's played by Mercedes McNabb, who played Harmony in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. And it's so funny because in that show she was also, like, a girl who was just chilling, and then she got turned into a vampire. But I was like, oh my god, Harmony, what are you doing here, silly? Also, I was like, she was wasted on this role. She was in it for, like, 2 seconds. Whatever. I have mad beef. I digress. She wakes up. She's tied to a chair. Sam and Dean are standing over her. And Dean is like, where's the nest? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to come down. And they're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And she's like, my name is Lucy. I was at a bar named The Spider, and I was there with some guy, and he was, like, a plug, and he was telling me that, like, he's gonna put this thing in my drink, and it was gonna be great. Like, a party drug, right? Like, that's what she is assuming is happening. And Sam is like, so he put these drops in. Did he happen to say what it was? And she's like, no, he didn't. And Dean's like, was it, like, a really thick red drop? And she's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I drank it, and now I'm like, I'm so hungry, and I can hear so much, and I can, like, hear your heart's beating, and it won't wear off, and I'm not coming down. And, like, it just sucks. And Dean's like, does the sun hurt your skin? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, well, bad news, girl. What you drank was not a drug, it was vampire blood, and, like, he must have bitten you, and now you're a vampire. But she's like, no, I don't believe you. And Dean is like, you've already killed, like, 3 people. And she's, like, adamant that that is not happening. And she's, like, freaking out. And Sam and Dean kind of walk away into, like, another room. And they're still, like, in a warehouse, but, like, they walk away into another room and start talking. And they don't debate for very long, but they're like, well, we don't really have a choice. We kind of have to take her ass out. But they're also like, well, this didn't really help us, like, find anything about the nest, so we'll have to figure it out. And then Dean grabs his machete and walks back into the other room, and we don't see it, but we hear the sound of a decapitation. So
you're like, whoa, okay, so we're doing that. I'll also say, the description of what it feels like to, like, become a vampire and, like, what it feels like normally, as they were saying it, it does become important later in the episode, but as they were saying it, I'm like, oh, so it's just being autistic. Got it.
I don't know if, I feel like our experiences may be a little, the experiences may be a little bit different, but
they're like, oh, like lights and sounds are really overwhelming.
When you, no, I guess you're right. Okay, when I think about it that way, I'm like, you're right. So I was like, dang, you realize, you go into the doctor's office and you're like, I can hear other people's heartbeats and I have an insatiable thirst for blood, and they're like, it must be the autism.
The one time you can get an autism diagnosis easily.
That's the thing is, like, if you put in the DSM-5, autism and vampire are right next to each other.
They're like, so that really the only difference is that one, there's an insatiable bloodlust and, like, supernatural strength, and the other one is, like, tends to have Ehlers-Danlos and, like, was real. And you know what? And vampires, they're immortal and they get, like, really into, like, weird hyperfixations. Like,
yeah,
have you,
like, this guy in this episode that we're going to talk about, he has a hyperfixation with blonde women.
That's true.
Well, the guy, we can't.
It's his special interest.
Don't worry, this is just in case you couldn't tell. I know we have a Supernatural podcast, but I do feel it important to make a point that we are both quite neurodivergent. So this is not us punching down, I promise.
I have an on paper diagnosis. It's not autism, but it's like, you have several.
It's something that's like, it could have been.
They're like, you have several elements of the autism and the ADHD, but you are also a woman, so I diagnose you with a little bit of everything.
Love.
Yeah, because we did make jokes about Dean being autistic last episode too.
But guys, we love autism here. Autism has spoken. And it's winning. We're joining the war on the side of autism.
That's Dean Winchester.
Yeah. He doesn't realize it. Is that not the war between heaven and hell?
People have been headcanoning Castiel as autistic since the dawn of time, aka Lazarus Rising, so...
No, that's why he and Dean work so well together. They understand each other in a way. He's like, he just gets me. And it's like, doesn't understand why, and he's like, maybe it's because we have this profound bond. You both just have autism, guys.
Yeah, and Sam, he is ADHD. That man, Dean's always like, how do you know this stuff? And he's like, is this actually my hyperfixation?
Because here's the other thing, Sam also has autism.
Yeah, they might, actually, it might be...
This is just a show about...
Wait, because it runs in the family? That explains a lot about John.
And you know what? A lot about Mary, too. Hang on.
It explains a lot about John, because John was like, okay, so my wife is killed.
His hyperfixation was being a bad dad.
No, but it's not just that, like, oh, they're like, oh, like, the lust for revenge or whatever, but, like, he got down to, like, the minutiae of, like, the monsters and writing it down and, like, all this shit, whatever. Like, he could have asked for help, but, like, he didn't have the social skills, so his only friend was Bobby. Oh my god, he's literally neurodivergent and a minor.
Anyway, we cut to a hospital room, and we see the guy who was attacked in the beginning of the episode, the guy who had been attacked by this vampire, and he is, like, making a recovery, and, you know, clearly a patient, but he's stable, he's alright. And who do we see interviewing him? Well, and he's like, I already told my story to the police, why do I need to tell you guys too? And who do we see but Gordon and his friend Kubrick, who just has a weird gay religious vibe. He's very Ethel Cain in a lot of ways, but that's a joke for legal reasons. But Gordon is like, well, we're not the police, we're the FBI, so we just need some information. And he's like, well, I don't know what else to say, like, she attacked me and she bit me. And Gordon is like, well, did you drink any of her blood? Like, did any of her blood, like, did you ingest any of it? And he's like, what? No, like, that's crazy. Why? And he's like, well, because there's a horrible disease going around that woman has. And he's like, well, she bit me. He's like, no, you'll be fine as long as you didn't ingest any of her blood. You're good. All right? We're good.
Oh, he also says, he's like, well, and if you ingest any of the blood, we'd have to kill you. And he's like, haha, funny joke. And he's like, and they just look at him like, that's not a joke.
My honest reaction to that. Like, just them staring at you. But, yeah, he's like, haha. But Gordon's like, okay, so tell us a little about the guys who saved you. Do you remember anything about them? And the guy was like, no, I don't. They were just, like, two guys. One of them was really tall. And then Gordon and Kubrick look at each other and are like, okay, we got our boys.
Oh, they're two tall white guys?
Well, to be fair,
we got 'em.
To be fair, they only said one of them was really tall.
That's true. Even though they're both, like,
pretty tall.
Really tall objectively.
Yeah, but comparatively speaking, an entire generation thinks Jensen Ackles is not very tall, but that man is. He's quite tall.
Just because Jared is a fucking giant. Same with Misha. He's also quite tall.
Yeah, but he's shorter than both of them, so he's like a little guy.
They really, filming Supernatural is like filming Lord of the Rings. They were like forced perspective the whole time.
Yeah. Do you think Jensen Ackles wore those stupid platform shoes Robert Downey Jr. had to wear when he was playing opposite Gwyneth Paltrow? I bet he wanted those. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't.
So we cut to this bar, the Spider, which the girl had mentioned in the beginning. Lucy was her name. I keep wanting to call her Harmony. That's not her name. And Sam and Dean are talking, and Sam's like, no, like, this has to be like the vampire's hunting ground, because blonde women three blonde women have been taken from this exact location. Like, this was the last place they were seen. This has to be his hunting ground. And Dean's like, okay, yeah. So they're looking around, and they see this girl, the blonde, pretty young girl, like, following this guy out of the bar, like, behind a corner, like, behind an alley. And Sam and Dean run over to follow him, and they see him about to give her, like, a dose of vampire's blood, but they manage to, like, pull her away and beat the fuck out of this vampire. The girl, like, runs off, and the boys follow after the vampire. And, like, as they run around this corner, they end up in an alley, and they look up, and fucking Gordon and Kubrick are there with their guns aimed at them. And they're both standing there, and they're like, oh my god, what do we do? And they're like, run, so they run away. And Gordon and Kubrick are, like, shooting at them. But Sam and Dean are, like, getting out of here. And Dean's like, Sam, you run for it. They want you. I'm gonna try to distract them. So Sam runs, Dean, like, runs across an alley with Kubrick, like, following after him while Gordon tries to go for Sam. But then he gets sidetracked and, is looking for Sam. And the vampire punches the shit out of him, and he gets knocked unconscious, and that's where the scene ends. It's like
horrible. Worst person you know is right. Saved by the fucking vampire.
Yeah, I was like, okay, girl boss, maybe sister served. No.
It's foreshadowing to Benny.
Real. No, Benny, this guy wishes he was Benny. No, this felt very like Benny Hill. I wish that music had been playing in the background while this was happening. Like Yakety Sack.
Yakety Sack.
Yeah. That's what this, because it was just them running around back and forth really fast.
You know they were on that Warner Brothers lot.
You know they were. So we're back at the motel. Dean, like, slams open the door and comes in, and he's clearly, like, out of breath. It's clear that he had just, like, basically, like, drawn Kubrick away and then fucking sprinted back here. So, like, he's clearly just coming off of the chase. Sam is already back. And they're like, oh my god, are you fucking kidding me? How did Gordon get out of jail? What is happening? And yeah, Sam's like, and like, if he got out of jail, like, how would he, even if he, like, managed to break out, how would he even know where we are? And Dean's like, oh, wait a minute. Hang on. The other day, Bela called me. This wasn't to...
He's such a fucking idiot.
I'm such an idiot. This wasn't for... She wasn't trying to thank me. And he calls her. I'm like, Dean, you are so stupid. But he calls her, and he's like, Bela, what the fuck? And she's like, oh, well, Gordon paid me to tell him where you were. And he had a gun to my head. And Dean's like, if we make it out of this alive, the first thing I'm going to do is kill you. And then he hangs up, and she's like in her car, and it shows her being like, okay, well, cool. I'm just like, Dean, you were so fucking dumb.
I think Dean should have called her, and the first thing he should have said was, Bela, where have you been, Loca?
You say this every single time she's in. No.
But I think it would have been funny.
I feel like this is violating the rule of thirds. We'd made this joke enough.
I'll keep making it.
And I'll keep cutting it out.
No!
Anyway. Gordon opens his eyes. And he's in, like, a vampire nest. And he sees that there are these two blonde girls who look very similar to Lucy from the beginning. They're tied up, like, bound by their hands, like, hanging from the ceiling. And we see this man, the same man who punched the shit out of Gordon. His name is Dixon, which Lucy had said earlier and I failed to mention. But we see Dixon injecting these girls with his blood, and he's like, hey, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. I promise. I know it hurts now, but it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. And Gordon's like, oh, fuck you for, like, what you're doing to these girls and what you're doing to people. You're a terrible monster. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to save my kind of vampire, my people, vampires, so that they don't become extinct. And Gordon is like, no, your kind are ruthless murderers who kill people. If you'll recall, Gordon's sister got turned into a vampire, and he killed her because she was a vampire. That was his backstory. Anyway, but they're going back and forth, Gordon being like, vampires are disgusting, and this guy being like, well, you know what? Hunters killed my daughter. And he shows this picture of, like, this very old, must have been like 1800, like early 1800s-esque painting of his daughter.
She's giving Samantha the American Girl doll.
That was more 19, yeah. That was more not turn of the century. Yeah, turn of a century.
Yeah.
But I digress. But he has this picture, and he's like, hunters killed my daughter. And I'm gonna kill you for my, like, new daughters to feed on. Talking about these blonde girls. And then Gordon is like, oh, well, your kind sucks and all this stuff. And he gives this just awful tirade of abuse, which is, like, fine, because it's a vampire. He's trying to kill people.
And I'm like, you know what, Gordon?
Like,
pop off.
Gordon was kind of right in this case, because this dude is, like, fucked up and crazy. But he is like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna let them feed on you. I have something better in mind. And Gordon's like, wait, no. And Dixon cuts his arm and puts it into, like, Gordon's mouth and turns him into a vampire while Gordon lays, like, defenseless on the table.
I forgot that this happened. Like,
yeah, I did too.
Like, I remember, like, his story involved something like this, but I did forgot that this happened, and, like, that this is, and I was like, god damn. His story is very, while we have talked about the problematic elements of it, his story is also quite compelling. And, like, you know that it was going to end this way eventually, because it's, like, it's foreshadowed in the fact that, like, his sister became a vampire, whatever, but you're like, god damn.
That's the thing that sucks about Gordon, is that I'm like, in a better show, he would be a very compelling character. Like, he is a very compelling character in this show, but I think it's one of those things that you have to get past a lot of things to enjoy his narrative. Just because, again, we always talk about it, and I feel like we don't have to rehash it again and again, but when one of your only named black characters is an antagonist in the way that he is, and is very, like, there's just not good implications there. That being said, we've harped on it a lot. Aside from that, like, he is a very interesting character, and I think now that we've at least gotten to know him a little, he feels a little bit more like an actual character. You can enjoy it more.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what's interesting is that when you look at, like, later seasons, whatever, like, yeah, like, the villains get bigger and bigger, whatever, and, like, but he was always such a compelling antagonist, and he was very, like, grounded and real, and I was like, yeah, they never got back to that kind of sauce.
Yeah.
They really didn't.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the other thing, too. I feel like it's hard to get characters, like, get actors like Sterling K. Brown for roles like this, just because, like, he is such a fabulous actor. Like, they are very lucky that they got him for this role when they did, because his career was, like, about to boom.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy seeing him in this, because I'm like, dude, aren't you, like, really, really famous? Why are you playing, like, a B villain in Supernatural?
Ariana, what are you doing here?
So anyway, we cut back to the motel. The boys are in their room trying to figure out what to do. They're sharpening their machetes, and Dean's like, oh man, what did I even do about Gordon? Like, he's not gonna stop. Like, he's not gonna get away this time, because, like, he's not gonna stop until we're dead or he's dead. And, like, I don't even know what to do. And Sam's like, okay, so let's kill him. And Dean's like, oh. Okay, are you sure? And Sam's like, yeah, like you said, like, he's not gonna stop till we're dead or he's dead, so I guess we don't have a choice. Yeah, let's kill him. And this is before they knew he was a vampire, too, so they were fully like, let's just murder this living guy.
Oh, this is also some foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because remember, Sam didn't come back right.
Sam's a little fucked up. But
he's a little fucked up in the head.
Dean is a little bit more, like, he's a little bit less, like, concerned about this, because he's kind of like, yeah, okay, like, yeah, we need to kill this motherfucker. But he's also, like, you can tell he's a little like, okay, all right, that's fine. In this case, it's fine. But as they're having this conversation, Dean's phone rings, and he answers, and basically, without him even saying anything, Bela's like, well, out of the goodness of my heart and the fact that I don't want you to kill me as soon as you figure this out, I figured out where Gordon's exact location is. And Dean's like, wait, how did you do that? And she's like, I am a purveyor of rare and magical artifacts. I used a talking board to contact the other side to find out Gordon's location. He's in a 2-story warehouse near the riverfront with a neon sign outside that, so yeah, you'll find him there. Also, the spirits had a message to pass on. They said, leave town, run like hell, and don't go after Gordon. You guys can do with that as you will. Goodbye. And hangs up.
That is an objectively crazy conversation, because it's like, first of all, she's just using Ouija boards and, like, is just chill with the spirits enough that they're just telling her exact information. Like, if she's not nearby, how would the spirits know? Like, again, huh? And then for the spirits to be like, ooh, don't go there because it's spooky vampire. Huh? This is never a thing that is touched on later that we have, you know, ghost whisper networks.
Like, no, literally, like, they don't talk to spirits in this show ever. I'm like, the fact that they just do this, like, Bela should be the main character of this show.
She's literally like, so anyway, bye. It's objectively crazy. And then for them to just, like, give that warning and you're like, huh?
It's so bizarre. And I'm like, I'm obsessed with it, though, because I also like the idea that, like, Sam and Dean and, like, John and Bobby, whatever, have tried to talk to spirits, but they're just like, we do not vibe with them. Bela, though, girl boss. I do feel that the more I see of Bela, the more I remember that I did, like her. Like, she is a fun character. And I do feel like she's like...
It's simply also because she antagonizes Sam and Dean, and, like, they do deserve getting their ass beat sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that I like this episode because she's not trying to be more than she is, if that makes sense. Like, they're not trying to make her something she's not. Which is just like, oh my god, I'm a girl boss, and I'm slay. I mean, she is that, but she's also, like, a character. Anyway. So... we cut back to the warehouse, and Gordon wakes up, and he's, like, having a fucking issue. He's tied up, like those other girls were, like, bound by his hands. But he manages to, like, break through the chains and get loose from the ceiling, and he kind of, like, stumbles away. And the girls are like, my god, help us. And we see him looking at them, and then it cuts. And we see him, like, ambling down the street. Like, there's a guy changing the tire on his car, and, like, the headlights are on, and we see them, like, from Gordon's perspective, they're, like, really light. His eyes are bloodshot. You can hear the guy's heartbeat. Like, he's clearly experiencing, like, vampiric hunger. And you can see him sort of trying to fight back, but then he can hear this guy's blood pumping. And then Gordon, like, looks up into, like, a car window and sees his reflection, and his teeth turn into fangs. And then we see this guy get into his car, but Gordon is in the back seat. And then we see, in classic Supernatural fashion, instead of seeing anything that actually happens, we just see blood splatter and spewing all up against the inside of this car, like, on the windows. Which,
you're like, damn.
Classic.
Shit.
So then Sam and Dean show up at this warehouse, and they're kind of sneaking around, and they find Dixon, the vampire, and he's standing alone in this room, and he's clearly just fucked up. He's so distraught. And the two blonde girls that had been hanging there are dead. Still tied up. And Dixon turns to look at them, and he's like, yeah, you guys can just kill me. You know, it's like, I feel, and Sam and Dean are like, okay, well, what happened? He's like, he killed my daughters, my family. And they're like, oh my god, did you turn Gordon into a vampire, silly Billy? Bro.
They're like, girly pop, you biggest fuck up you could have made.
And he's like, you know what? That's okay. I don't care anymore. You know, don't you know that feeling where you've tried, and like, you're just empty? And it's like, you know, you've lived so long and you've seen so much and you're just empty. There's nothing left to live for. You guys can just kill me. It won't matter either way. And
that line.
It's very, like, you can see, as this scene is happening, we see Dean's face. Who's clearly feeling, like, a very similar type of way.
Well, also, like, that, because I think he says he's like, oh, I'm cursed to an eternity of, like, being alone or whatever, and I'm just sitting there like,
yeah, because he's talking about, like, how his family, his vampire family, has been killed, and he's like, don't you know what it's like when you know that whatever you do, you're gonna end up alone? And I was like, fuck you guys for writing the finale the way you did once again. Damn, this episode made me mad.
No, because I thought about the finale. I thought about the fact that, like, Dean goes to hell for 40 years. I thought about Dean in fucking purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about Castiel knowing that he would be in super hell alone.
It's so fucked.
And for an eternity. Because I was just like, hey, I know you didn't mean this on purpose, but fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, shit. I hate this.
Yeah. I don't even remember if they kill Dixon or if we see it. Did they kill him? I think.
Well, no. Also, the major part here is they didn't just kill. Like, he didn't just kill those girls. He decapitated them.
Yeah, Gordon did hurt them quite bad.
Well, and
I mean,
to be fair,
were
you
vampires.
have to decapitate a vampire, whatever. But, like, you come in and, like, there's, like, they're headless bodies, whatever, and you're like, and they say, they're like, this wasn't a machete, like, this was brute strength.
Yeah. Oh, they did.
And they're like,
yeah.
And that's how they figure out, they're like, oh, God, you turned him, you fucking idiot.
Now he's, like, more dangerous than he has ever been. Yeah, it wasn't like he decapitated them with it. He ripped their heads off with his bare hands, which is like, girl, you are fucked up and nasty.
Yeah, do they kill him?
I don't remember. And you know what? It's never relevant again.
Matter. So
sorry, guys. Dixon, your fate is to the wind. Anyway, we cut to Kubrick's trailer, and Gordon, like, comes in, and Kubrick's like, oh my god, like, are you okay? Like, what happened? And Gordon's like, I'm a monster.
This whole scene, it's a little
There's a
homo.
lot of gay vibes going on, but he's like, I'm a monster. And Kubrick looks like he's gonna, like, cry. He looks so sad, and he's like, you know, I'm gonna have to kill you. And Gordon's like, yeah, I know, and that's what you should do. But I have to do one last thing before you do. I'm stronger now. I have these powers. I can kill Sam Winchester. It's the one good thing that can come out of this nightmare. And he kind of is giving this sort of monologue. And it is, like, it's a very interesting look into Gordon, like, as a character, because he's not doing this because he is, like, crazy. He is doing this because he genuinely thinks this is the right thing to do. Like, he really thinks that Sam is, like, fucked up and an evil creature. And he's not,
to be fair, he's not wrong.
With the information that he has, it's like, I mean, he ends up being way more right than even the writers, I think, knew at the time.
He's the fucking vessel for Lucifer. Like, he's the only one who's like, hey, guys. He's the only one who's like, hey, I know that we're, like, focused on all these monsters, but, like, the demons were clearly trying to do something with Sam, and he's the fucking Antichrist, and everyone's like, no, that's not possible. He's like, no, and we need to kill him. And everyone's like, you're crazy. He's like, no.
Yeah.
We need to kill this man. And you're like, you know what? He's kind of right.
No, I hate to say it. Is he a little crazy? Yeah, but he's kind of right. But Gordon is kind of going on this monologue, and from behind him, Kubrick is like, yeah. But we see him walking up, like, with a machete to decapitate him, because he's like, obviously this cannot happen. And then Gordon quickly turns around and rips through Kubrick with his bare hands, like, punches through him, and is like, I'm sorry.
He's, like, holding him in his arms and ripped his heart out, and you can see the blood on his hand. You're like, all right, this is a little homo.
It's a little homo. It's very Hannibal when he slits Will's throat. Anyway, spoilers for Hannibal.
Okay, this is a Supernatural podcast. If they don't already know about Hannibal, I will say, and here's the thing, I've never watched all the way through Hannibal, but I knew that from the gifts. So.
Period.
But I will say, yeah, I don't know why they had to make this so fucking homo, but also, to be fair, vampire stories in general are already a little homo. But to be fair, Gordon and Kubrick were a little homo in other episodes.
Kubrick has just been homo with every man he's interacted with is the problem.
That's true. Like, every time he's, like, in that trailer with them, they're like, all right, damn.
I also think, again, Sterling K. Brown is just is a very good actor, and he is very good at working with the chemistry that others bring. So, like, I think,
You're like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. Shit.
He's just serving. So, we're back at the motel. Sam and Dean are arguing, and Dean's like, okay, Sam, you stay here. I'm gonna go after Gordon. And Sam's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, you'll get yourself killed. That's insanely reckless and stupid. And Dean's like, well, he doesn't want you. He wants me. And plus, I have nothing left to lose. I'm dead already. And Sam's like, Dean, stop it. You can drop the act. I can see right through you. I know you're scared because your year is running out. You're still going to hell. This is how you act when you're freaked out. I know you better than anyone. You're my big brother. I've been looking up to you since I was 4. And this is I've been trying to be you. I've been trying to emulate you. And this is exactly how you act when you're scared. I wish you would just drop the act and be my brother again. Just because. And it's like, oh my god, Jared acted the fuck out of this scene, though. It was so fucked up. I was like, it really had me gagged, because I was like, because I watched the show and I'm always like, whatever, but I was like, fuck, that actually really got my ass.
No, because not only they were like, yeah, we're gonna hit you with this monologue, but also, yeah, Jared, he did the damn thing, like, and you're like, oh, god, fuck. Mm-hmm. I remember why I was a Sam stan for so long. Yeah. I was like, oh, shit. You're like, and also, this episode paired with what happens in the next episode and what they talk about in the next episode,
it's fucked up.
There's a lot of times when they do, like, the monster of the week, and then it's connected to, like, their relationship with their dad. This is very much about their relationship with each other, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm having a lot of an emotion right now, and I hate that. Yeah. I hate that you're making me feel, especially knowing what happens at the end of the fucking series.
Every single episode I watch makes me more and more angry about how it ended, but I digress. So Dean kind of nods his head, and he's like, okay, we will go together. We'll find, like, a motel or something, and we'll wait until Gordon shows up, because he's gonna come for you. So they wait for a couple hours, and they're hanging out, and then Dean, and here's another thing that happened earlier. Sam and Dean destroyed their phones, right? Because they were like, okay, Bela has your number, Gordon could have your number, we have to destroy them so they can't track them, right? So they destroy their phones, and this happened earlier in the episode. And they got new phones, right? But they're sitting at the hotel room, and Dean's phone rings, and Sam's like, we got these phones, like, not even 24 hours ago. Who did you give your number to? And Dean's like, no one. And he answers it, and Gordon's like, hey, it's me. And Dean's like, how did you get this number? And he's like, dude, I went to the phone store, and I could tell you guys had been there because I could smell it. And then I guess he just asked the person what their number was. It wasn't entirely clear. I'm not sure that that's how it works, but it is what it is.
I don't know.
Not enough to break my immersion. It was whatever. But I guess he went to the phone store and was like, what was the number of this guy who just... Whatever. But he's like... Dean's like, okay, well, what do you want? Well, like, where are you? We'll come get your ass. And Gordon's like, actually, hang on. Here, you talk to him. And he puts his phone up to a girl who he has, like, tied up. And she's like, please help me. And Gordon takes the phone back and he's like, if you're not at this warehouse, gives them the location, if you're not here in 20 minutes, I'll kill her. And then he hangs up. And it's fucked up.
And they're like, oh, damn, he's not fucking around.
So the boys are like, okay, well, fuck, I guess we gotta go save her. I guess it's fucked up. So they go to this warehouse, right? And they find this girl. She's tied up. She's on the floor. They start untying her, and they go to escape. But as they go through the door, like a garage door slams down between them. So Dean is on one side with the girl, and Sam is on the other side, inside of the warehouse. And then the lights turn off, and Sam stands up in, like, a defensive posture. Obviously, Gordon has separated them. Gordon's in the room with Sam. Sam is ready. He's sort of walking around. Dean is desperately trying to break down this door, but keeps failing. As this is kind of happening, there's two things that kind of happen at once here. The first thing is that we see Gordon, obviously, like, he has, like, night vision, so he can see Sam still. But Sam is sort of preparing, and Gordon starts antagonizing Sam, and it's dark, so Sam can't see. Sam is like, Gordon, this isn't you. You're still a hunter. You're not, like, some monster. Like, you don't have to hurt people. And Gordon's like, oh, no, like, I'm a monster now. Like, no, this is, like, I'm bad. I'm not a human anymore. I'm, like, giving into this, okay? I've got, like, all this stuff. He's basically talking about, like, I'm crazy now, and I can smell blood, and I can do all this shit. This is not normal. And I can't remember exactly what he says, but he does imply, like, yeah, I don't really care about people anymore. The only thing I care about is, like, killing you. And Sam's like, okay, but, like, you didn't have to, like, you didn't hurt that girl. And Gordon's like, didn't I? And then Sam kind of realizes.
Oh, he says, he's like, oh, you didn't kill that girl. And he's like, oh, I bet I did something far worse. Yeah. And then it flashes to that she has turned into a vampire.
Yeah, she's a vampire, and she goes to attack Dean, and they're on the other side of the door. And Dean turns around and pulls out the Colt and shoots her with it and immediately kills her because it's the Colt. And I'm like, damn, y'all are wasting these new Colt bullets like nobody's business.
It is very much, this is how we're sliding into the, like, angel blade, demon blade thing, where it's just like, boom, 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 like, we went from, like, oh, we need a special gun, and we need to do a exorcism, or we need to slash somebody's head or whatever, like, yeah, I got the special gun, fuck it. Like,
yeah. No, they were like, we realized that it was too hard to justify this big same fight every time. We're like, okay, fine, they just have a really good gun. But Sam is still in the darkness with Gordon. And Gordon is like, I'm gonna do 2 final good deeds before I go. Killing you, and then killing myself. And at that moment, Gordon, like, jumps at Sam. And they break through a wall. Like, he beats the fuck out of Sam. And Dean runs in like finally manages to break down the door, and he comes in and he goes to fire a bullet from the Colt at Gordon, but Gordon attacks him and tries to like get Dean's ass, but then Sam grabs like a razor wire, like chicken wire almost. But he grabs like this like barbed wire.
And it is some big barbed wire.
Big ass barbed wire. But he grabs barbed wire from like a table because they're in a warehouse, and warehouses just have like loose barbed wire, I guess. But he puts it around Gordon's neck and starts squeezing, and Gordon tries to like attack him, but Sam pulls it so hard that Gordon gets decapitated.
That shit is crazy.
And we also
it's really bloody.
It's really bloody. It's quite graphic. It's not like crazy graphic, but it was pretty graphic. And then Gordon kind of falls to his knees, and his body is propped up, leaning against like a kind of like a tube thing. And we see his head. We don't see it, but we see like the outline of his head lying on the ground as Sam and Dean walk out of the warehouse.
And you're like, well,
goodbye, Gordon.
And they're like, yeah, we really skirted the ethical dilemma of if we should just kill this guy because he was no longer human. So it's fine, we can kill him now.
Yeah.
You're like,
also, all that stuff we were talking about, how it's like, okay, now that Gordon's finally a character, we can finally get past, the racism and enjoy him. But then it's like, immediately we are going to kill him. Immediately he is dead.
Okay.
It was like, they really knew the writer's strike was coming.
They were like, okay, and we're done. And we're leaving here.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
I was like, fuck you. Gordon actually just started to be like, Gordon could have been a really interesting actual antagonist. I'm like, why did we... the thing is, I feel like it was very well written how it did happen, if it had to happen this way, but I just wish it had gone differently.
I'm a Gordon stan.
I thought he
problematic.
I thought he was cunty. I'll say it.
Yeah.
It's the next day. The boys are sitting like on a back road. They're having some beers together. And I'm like, okay, who is drinking and driving? Because clearly they're not like at a motel or anything. Like they're at a back road, so someone's drinking and driving. But
I think only Sam was drinking because Dean is fixing the car.
No, I think it was kind of implied that they both were. Just gonna be weird of...
Oh, I don't know.
Whatever.
But they might have been there for a while. Who knows?
But Dean is like arm deep in the Impala, working on the engine. And he's like, Sam, can you pass me like the box wrench? And Sam hands it to him, and they're sitting there, and Dean kind of looks over at Sam and looks back at the Impala, and he's like, hey, come over here. And Sam's like, oh, do you need something? He's like, yeah, just come over here. And Sam's like, did you figure out what like the rattling noise was? And he's like, yeah, actually you're gonna do it. And they start talking about car stuff, and Dean's like, okay, do you know what, this thing that's right on top of here? And Sam says what it's called. And Dean's like, yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, so you're gonna, go in here and, like, adjust this. And Sam's like, dude, you barely even let me drive. Why are you suddenly letting me, like, make adjustments and actually fix the car? And Dean's like, well, you're gonna need to know this kind of stuff down the line, And it's my job to show my little brother, show him the ropes. Show you what you gotta do. And then Dean hands Sam the wrench. Hands him the wrench. And he's...
Not the ranch!
He pours ranch dressing into the car. And he's like, no, this is why I don't let you work on it. No, but Sam starts, like, working on the car. And Dean kind of nods along. And that's the end of the episode.
As soon as the scene started, and then as soon as he starts talking about the car, I remembered this scene, and I was like, oh,
no.
Oh, this hurts.
Because we also don't get a lot of scenes where, like, I feel like this show very much enacts like, the boys talk about their emotions, even if they don't get resolved. Like, they talk about the things that are plaguing them. This is one of those few scenes where, like, again, I know the whole, like, the problem with this, but it was very show don't tell of showing Dean being like, you know what, I listened to you and now I'm gonna be your big brother again. And like,
yeah, which is funny because one of the other few times they do that is in the next episode.
No,
where Sam does
it's
that.
It's so weird how like good these two episodes are next to each other. I mean, I guess it's not like when you have a coherent layout of your season. And, like, which I think that these first 5 seasons have way more than the rest of the show. So I'm always, like, impressed when it has, like, thematic relevancy, when the episodes, like, work well with each other.
Yeah, wow. It just, also, again, watching this, and obviously they're moving up to the fact that he's going to be dragged into hell, and ostensibly dies. However, I know, as someone who's finished the show 15 seasons later, that he will need that knowledge when Dean dies on a fucking rusty nail permanently. And then I go, oh, now I'm upset. Now I'm sad. Now I'm very sad. And there are other times in the show where they are separated for long periods of time. We'll get to that, where one of them thinks the other one's dead, or Sam even. When Dean's in purgatory, for example. But, like, I just keep thinking about, like, oh, when he actually dies for real, and I was like, oh, no, this hurts. I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, no, it's so rough. Again, this show always gets me to care about them, and it sucks because I know I'm, like, gonna get really invested in these characters again, and then the show is gonna get bad again, and I'm always, like, I keep hoping it's not gonna happen, but I know it is. I know I'm gonna be disappointed. And I'm just trying to enjoy this while I can.
Oh, I was looking at the trivia for this episode. Apparently, Mercedes McNabb's character is named Lucy, which is a reference to Dracula. We are currently in Dracula Daily right now, so I feel like that's relevant. Dracula Daily is basically, like, you can get emails with, like, the chapters of Dracula because it was originally serialized, and it's very fun. And it's a reference to Dracula because there's a character named Lucy who was an unknowing victim of Dracula. Also, slight plug here for the podcast Re-Dracula, which is basically, they're doing Dracula Daily as a podcast. You should go listen to it. It's very fun. So, yeah, that episode has a lot going on plot-wise, a lot going on emotionally, and then has that fucking sad-ass ending. And then it goes into this next episode that you think is going to be a Silly Willy Billy episode, and it's fucking not. It's not a Silly Willy Billy episode. It's also sad.
It is a little Silly Willy Billy, though.
Welcome to not Christmas in July, Christmas in Pride Month. This is the Supernatural Christmas special. Otherwise known as A Very Supernatural Christmas. Which they never do again.
No, don't they have another Christmas episode?
They might have Christmas-themed episodes. I don't think they have, like, a special.
That's true.
All right. So, this is the Supernatural Christmas special. We could have saved this for Christmas, but we're not, because thematically it pairs well in this season, okay? It starts with 1 year ago, Seattle, Washington, in our cold open. The doorbell on this, like, suburban home opens, and there's, like, this older man, and he's visiting his grandson. It's all very cute. It's all very, like, commercial, very picturesque. And, like, that evening, like, he dresses up as Santa, and he, like, starts unloading the presents and whatever, and the kid is, like, clearly watching him, and it's, like, super cute. And suddenly, like, he hears a noise on the roof. And he's like, okay, well, it's not me. And the kid is like, oh my God, it's Santa. And then the kid hears the noise on the roof and is like, oh my God, it's reindeer. And the grandpa's like, I mean, I don't think it is, but, and he hears, like, noises in the fireplace. And so he goes over to the fireplace and he's, like, going to go in it. And, like, the kid is, like, really excited because he's like, oh my God, like, Santa's going up into the fireplace. And he goes into the fireplace, and then something comes down the chimney and then grabs him and, like, drags him up, and, like, you can hear him being, like, eaten and dismembered as his grandson is watching, and he's, like, yanked up, and then, like, a bloody boot falls out, and then it's, like, supernatural.
Love.
So, welcome to Horror Christmas.
Also, it's so important to say that basically anytime there's a cut in this episode, imagine a very, like, loud, sappy Christmas music playing as it happens.
Oh, yeah.
This is also the first episode, like, it doesn't have the regular Supernatural title card. It says A Very Supernatural Christmas instead of just, so it's like a fancy one.
Yeah, they're really trying to lean into the, like, broadcast TV Christmas special thing. They're having a really fun time with this. We're now in the present day. We're in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Is that how you say it? I don't fucking know.
Well, sorry, Michigan.
The Michigan people are they're gonna drag my ass. Anyway, Sam and Dean, they're dressed up as FBI agents. They're visiting this woman. Her name is Mrs. Walsh. Similarly, like, picturesque suburban home. Her husband has disappeared. And the only clue they find is that there's a bloody tooth in the fireplace. Clearly, a similar situation with the fireplace has occurred. And she's like, I don't know what to do. We haven't heard anything. It's like, it's only a couple days until Christmas. Like, what am I supposed to tell my daughter? And they're like, we're really sorry, ma'am. Like, we'll see what we could do. As they're walking out, Sam's like, okay, so this is the second guy in this town to disappear. And we found, like, a bloody tooth and some, like, weird shit, whatever. And they're like, okay, so we're dealing with, like, we're dealing with stuff with the chimney. And, like, clearly something has pulled these people up the chimney. So, like, there's clearly some sort of being. So he's like, they get back to their motel room. Sam has been doing his little research, his little lore. I do believe that he doesn't call Bobby until later. And he's like, okay, so I think we're dealing with an evil Santa. And Dean is like, okay, well, Santa isn't real, so, like, how could an evil Santa be real? And I'm like, girl, you hunt demons for a living.
Also, he's like, Santa's not real. And Sam's like, I know, you were the one who told me Santa wasn't real. Which you think is funny, but then you see what actually happens later, and it's really fucked up. It's really sad.
Like, oh, no, it's really sad.
Also, there is a part, and Dean's like, well, okay, that's stupid. Why would it, like, maybe there's other things that go in the chimney. And Sam's like, well, unless that chimney monster is Dick Van Dyke, then I think we're probably good. And Dean's like, who? And he's like,
He's like, Mary Poppins?
Like, are you fucking kidding? And Dean's like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, you mean to tell me movie buff Dean Winchester does not know what the fuck Mary Poppins is? You're telling me he doesn't know who Dick Van Dyke is? Are you kidding?
Remember, as we said in the last one, it's a musical, and that's a little too gay. He can know movies. He can't know fairy tales, because that's gay.
But Dick Van Dyke is like an actor. No, because this is the thing. Once again,
Mary Poppins is a little too gay.
But Dick Van Dyke is an actor, and Dean knows a lot about acting, and a lot about actors, and a lot about movies.
He dances and sings. That's gay.
No, I'm telling you, this is another case of depending on who is writing, we get a completely different Dean Winchester every single time.
It's like King. What's your personality? I just don't know.
No, the real Dean Winchester who lives in my heart would know who the fuck Dick Van Dyke is, okay? Let's be fucking real.
Once again, we're back to autistic Dean Winchester. He likes movies. He really only likes certain movies, and he has very specific special interests on certain things. It's not all movies. So, yeah, that whole conversation is wild. And so then Sam's like, okay, well, there's a lot of different cultures in Europe that have legends about some sort of evil Santa and, like, Krampus and shit. Like, maybe that's what it is. And he's like, so what does it do? And he's like, and instead of, like, bringing gifts for the good kids, he punishes the wicked at Christmas. And they're like, okay, so clearly there's something, like, attracting people into these people's houses. Like, what's the common denominator? And they figure out that both of these men visited this, like, local Santa's village before they disappeared. I don't know how they figure that out.
It's so people. Random. Dean is like, oh, well, we know they both went here. And it's like, well, how did we know that? Okay. Shit, apparently. I guess you know. That's cool. It's giving Sherlock when he would just be like, I had someone I know figure this out off screen. Fuck you if you wanted to solve the mystery.
Well, maybe in the questioning, maybe that's what they found
listen,
out.
I'm fine when Dean Winchester does it, but I have beef with Sherlock when he does it, because that's the whole point of Sherlock Holmes.
Specifically BBC Sherlock.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking specifically about BBC Sherlock. Because I'm like, the
fact that we're comparing Dean Winchester and BBC Sherlock.
No, Dean Winchester would beat the shit out of BBC Sherlock. He would kill him with hammers.
This feels like I'm being beat over the head with a brick.
This is like Superwholock, but it's like a death match.
We had an extended conversation about Voltron, and now we're talking about Superwholock death match.
We have a Supernatural podcast. Get used to it.
Yeah, but it's like a precipice, you know? Like, we can't... There's a point of no return. Like, okay. So, they go to this Santa's village, and as they're walking in, Dean is kind of, like, reminiscing, whatever, and he's like, oh, like, we used to have, like, such fun times at Christmas or whatever, and, like, I feel like I want to celebrate this year. And Sam's like, we didn't have fun times at Christmas. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we were always, like, traveling around, like, Dean and Dad wasn't there, and whatever. And Dean is, like, clearly, like, he's going through something. And, like, we, as the viewer, are knowing that, like, he is feeling the reason for the season. He is feeling very sentimental, whatever. He's seeing families all around him, whatever, because he knows he's about to fucking die. Sam... This also goes in the Sam is autistic. Sam is not reading the room.
No, because I do
he is not reading the room.
I do like you being like, Sam when he flops. No, he's not flopping. He's just autistic. And I'm like,
he's just autistic.
He can do both. He's versatile.
He can do both. He can do both. Because people are like, oh, like because he becomes soulless Sam. I'm like, no. This is different from soulless Sam. This is just his regular autism. Let me be clear. I want to differentiate here. So he's like, fucking Christmas sucked. Like, what are you talking about? And Dean's like, oh, well, like, I want to celebrate Christmas, and I want to do these things, whatever. And he's like, can we, like, celebrate Christmas this year? Like, it'd be kind of fun. Like, if we did all the things, whatever. And Sam's like, no. Like, he's really kind of a bitch about it. And you're like, okay, damn, bitch. Like, it's kind of ugly. And then we go to a flashback. And this is something emotionally that this episode does consistently. Yeah. And you're like, oh.
Also, I will say, there have been a lot of episodes of Supernatural where there have been flashbacks where we see younger actors playing Sam and Dean. I think that these two that are in this episode are, like, the ones that I always think of. Like, they're the prime young Sam and Dean.
Yeah, and they do a really good job. I think the ones who play, I think, like, teen Dean also does a really good job.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I think that purely by the fact that this kid is just very young and is really nailing his... Like,
yeah, actually, young Sam does a really good Sam.
He's, like, nailing it.
Yeah, so we flashback. We were in Broken Bow, Nebraska, 1991.
Oh, love.
1991 comes in... clear here in a second. So they're in a motel room. They're waiting for their dad to return, and Sam is wrapping a present for Dad.
And he's watching the Rankin Bass Christmas special, The Year Without a Santa Claus, which is on in the background.
And here's the thing that I noticed that I was like, oh, this is fucked up and crazy. Because at first it was like, oh, is this the Rankin and Bass the Santa Claus is coming to town, but then no, you hear the songs, and it's The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Which is so fucked up. Fuck you, John Winchester, for not being around. Because you know what? Year Without a Santa Claus, because at least they had Mrs. Claus when she was like, actually, something I love about Year Without a Santa Claus is that I know a lot about Rankin and Bass movies, shocking no one. I could probably quote Santa Claus is Coming to Town all the way through, by myself, which there's something wrong with me. But in
Heat Miser and Cold Miser are also played a really big part in my family.
But here's a fun thing. There's an entire song in that movie where Mrs. Claus is just like, anybody could be Santa. Fuck him. I could do it. I could put on his outfit. Yeah. I could do it. And I was like, and you should have. Women can do anything.
That movie walks to the Into the Spider-Verse could run. Anyone can wear the mask.
No, you're so right about that is the thing. Mrs. Claus handshake Miles Morales. Anyone can wear the suit. No, but
The year without a Peter Parker.
Is Peter Parker not kind of Santa Claus coded? Anyway,
we can't be doing this.
But I do think that think that if there had been
great claws comes great responsibility.
Okay. I do like that. I just think that Sam having a positive female role model in his life is important. I'm happy he's getting it from this movie.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was particularly sad because earlier when they were talking about Krampus, the way they kept describing him was that he was like the anti-Santa and that he was Santa's evil brother. And I was like, interesting phrasing there. Since Sam keeps being called the Antichrist and the evil brother. And then Dean is the brother who's about to die. And then you played The Year Without a Santa Claus. Got it. Okay. I'm making the connections here. I see. Maybe I didn't do that on purpose, but I'm connecting the dots because I'm neurodivergent and a minor. Anyway, back to the two who are actually neurodivergent and minors, young Sam and Dean. He's wrapping a present. It's really cute. He's like, I got it from Uncle Bobby. They call him Uncle Bobby. I'm like, hey, why don't they call him Uncle Bobby now? Why not? Ugh. Fuck you, Supernatural. Anyway,
fuck the damn show.
This is why there's only one good scene in that fucking Supernatural finale, and it is when Bobby is in heaven. Anyways, and Sam's asking questions about John. He's like, where's Dad? Like, what does he do for a living? Whatever. And Dean is like, he travels around. Stop asking questions. You know you're not supposed to ask. Blah, blah, blah. And he gets really, and then Sam gets really mad, and he's like, you don't like when I ask questions, and you especially don't like when I ask questions about Mom. And Dean's like, shut the fuck up. Like, clearly it's a sore subject. And we cut back to the present. We're in Michigan. We're in the Santa's Village. This scene, lot to unpack here. So Sam and Dean are walking through this sad-looking Santa's Village. One thing to note is that this is 2007. We are in Michigan. There is no snow in December. And this is one thing that you should know. Now, us in the year 2023, in the Northern Hemisphere, in the United States, when it's warm and there's not a lot of snow during December and Christmas, maybe not in Michigan, but at least where I live and a couple other places, that's pretty normal because global warming has hit the point of fucking no return. But in this show, it is foreshadowing, and it is that something is clearly wrong. And the Santa's Village is supposed to look dinky and off because there's no fucking snow. I did not even register it as off because I was like, that's how everything looks now. It's like 60 degrees in December. What are you talking about?
To be fair, this is also supposed to take place in Michigan, which snows more than where either of us live.
Well, not now.
Well, comparatively speaking, it still snows more there than it does where we are now, but back in the day.
But back in 2007.
The fact that 2007 was as long ago as it is really upsetting to me personally because I feel like there's going to be a younger generation soon that's going to bully me, and I don't like it.
Yeah. And I love
I'm gonna
that.
be like, remember when there was snow in the winter?
I remember when I had to wear a jacket in September. They're gonna be like, Mima, it's 90 degrees. It's true. I used to wear a jacket on my first day of school in September, and now it's 90 degrees until October. Anyways, we can't be talking about global warming. It'll make me sad. So anyways, this fucking village looks very dinky, and they decide, they're like, okay, let's look for like sketchy characters, and they find like the guy who is like playing Santa and having like kids sit on his lap and like whatever, and it's supposed to be like he's very kind of like gross and like unkempt and whatever, and it's a weird and creepy scene because they're supposed to make it that he's like kind of creepy with the kids, and you're like, all right, and why was that necessary?
I mean, to be fair, like, I didn't find like I don't think that he was particularly weird or creepy. I think they were just trying to frame it as such. But, like, I don't know. Yeah. I personally was like, okay, he's playing Santa. Playing Santa is just inherently weird.
Yeah, and it was all weird. But the other piece was also that
it's one of those things that's only weird if you make it weird.
And he was like, they made it weird because
they made it weird because they're Sam and Dean.
Yeah, which they do all the time. Oh, and also Sam earlier said, he was like, oh, in the lore, like, they try to lure people in and, like, lure kids in different ways. And he's like, and how? And he's like, oh, by, like, smelling really good, like, smelling like candy and whatever. They're like, okay, we're gonna look for someone who smells like candy and who's luring kids in. And they're like, oh, well, this guy. And he's like, he's limping around. He's limping around. I'm like, the ableism. And then Dean at one point is like, he could just have a limp. Like, he could be whatever. But then he passes the two of them and he smells like candy. And they're like, oh, so maybe we were right. And they're like, just like evil Santa. So that night they stake out his trailer and they're like falling asleep on this stakeout. They're like having a time. And Dean is talking to Sam again. He's like, why don't you want to celebrate Christmas? Like, what's your deal? And before they can really get into it again, they hear like a scream from inside the trailer. It sounds like a woman's scream. And they're like, they run in armed. And they find disheveled Santa in his trailer with a huge bong watching porn.
Love. He's living the American dream.
And you're like, God bless America.
No, it's only in America can a Santa get high off his ass and watch porn in a trailer in Michigan.
What the fuck is a kilometer? What else are you gonna do in Michigan, to be fair?
Oh, damn. The Michigan girlies are gonna be coming for you. We're angering everybody with this episode.
I'm so sorry. He's drinking. He has a bottle of liquor, whatever. And the two of them just kind of stand there and they're like, and there's like porn playing in the back. Mm-hmm. And then like, to cover up their mistake, Dean is like, maybe we should pretend to be carolers. And Dean like half-heartedly tries to start singing.
He sings,
and Sam's like,
he starts singing Silent Night. And he's like, Silent Night. And Sam starts singing along, but clearly they don't know the words. But they're like, there's a part like, but Santa also is looking at them, and he's so high, he starts singing along, too. He's like, hell yeah, brother. As Sam and Dean are walking out, Dean's like, round and round the table. As they leave. Which has also led in the featured music section on the Supernatural Wiki, it does have Silent Night by Sam and Dean Winchester listed as a song. This is an iconic scene. Also another thing that I have to mention is when they were looking at this Santa earlier, they looked over at him and Dean was like, oh, what's the deal with Saint Nicotine over there? They had jokes in this episode.
They did have jokes. He makes the Saint Nicotine joke. Oh, but also in that same scene, something very uncomfortable happens with Sam and Dean. One of the elves, like the woman playing one of the elves, walks over to them.
This was earlier when they first saw Santa at the...
Yeah, when they first saw Santa. She walks over to them. Now, here's my thing. Why did she start talking to them?
I don't know. Probably because they were two grown-ass men watching Santa.
And she's like, hi, like, can I help you? And they're like, oh, like... I don't know what they say initially in the conversation.
Okay, she's like, do you have a child that I can escort to go see Santa?
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, Dean's like, no, but it's always been my brother's dream to sit on Santa's lap. And she's like, well, we can only have kids under 12, sorry. And Sam's like, oh, no, he's just kidding. We're just here to watch. And she's like, ew.
and then Dean's like, and then they're both looking at each other like, you fucking idiots, like, to each other, and you're just like, because they've had so many moments like this before, you're like, girl.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, good job, now everyone thinks you're pedophiles, obsessed.
This is not the first time that this has happened.
I know, but this is by far the nastiest. I'm like, ew.
Ew, like, Stop. Get some help. Also, what did they fucking expect to happen? Anyways. Meanwhile. Back to now. Elsewhere during that same night, there's another guy is taken up the chimney in a sack. And this time you actually see, like, the kid is there, and you see, like, fucking Krampus, you assume, because you only see, like, his feet with his, like, fucked up red suit and his weird body bag. Like, that's all you see, and he's, like, goes upstairs, grabs the dad, and puts him in a body bag, and, like, drags him downstairs in front of the kid, takes a cookie, which is kind of funny, and in front of the kid is, like, alright, he looks like he's gonna hurt the kid, and then he's like, okay, we're good, and then he leaves, and goes up the chimney, and Sam and Dean, they investigate, and, they're like, okay, like, what is the common denominator here? Sam has his fucking Sherlock moment. He looks around the house, and he notices that there is this wreath, this unusual wreath, that he saw in the house of one of the other victims. And he says to the widow, he goes, hey, where did you get that wreath? And she's like, excuse me? Like, we're talking about my dead husband. Like, what are you talking
missing?
about? And he's like, or missing.
Fans just be like, can we see him? And the only thing left is his bloody boot.
Yeah. And Sam's like, and where did you get this wreath? And she's like, what the fuck? And so they walk out, and Dean's like, I'm surprised he didn't make a gay joke here, to be honest, but I guess we had a better writer on this episode.
It's Christmas. He can't make a gay joke. What would Jesus think? He does make a joke about the Easter Bunny being Jewish, though, which I love.
It is absolutely insane. And he's like, yeah, so how the fuck did you notice that? Like, interior design, Martha Stewart, girly pop. And Sam's like, I'm Sherlock Holmes, girl. So they go back to the hotel room. He's investigating. He talks to Bobby. And
Sam,
he's like,
Sam
okay.
does, just for clarity's sake.
Yeah, Sam. And he's like, okay, so it is the wreaths. There is this herb called meadowsweet in it. It was an herb that a lot of pagans used to use to summon gods with human sacrifice.
No, it's so important for you guys to know in this scene, actually what he says is, the pagans use this all the time for summoning. I'm like, the pagans?
The pagans?
Like, and what pagans? What paganistic religion are we talking about? Because there's a lot of pagans. You're saying every single pagan uses meadowsweet for summoning rituals where they're going to sacrifice someone, Sam? And then they never clarify. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, love.
Yeah, and they do this a lot in Supernatural, just in general. And also, like, he has talked to Bobby, and he's like, and Bobby's like, yeah, so you guys are fucking idiots. It's not fucking Krampus. It's a pagan god that is being summoned, you fucking idiot. Which is kind of funny. And so they go into this whole thing about pagan lore. This will not be the last time that we have this problem. And it's very funny, and Sam's like, okay, so we're looking for the pagan god of the winter solstice, who, like, and people would sacrifice to them because it gives them mild weather. And then they're like, oh, that's why it's nice outside. And that was when I realized, I was like, oh, because this is 2007, before we've noticed some major climate changes. Got it. Again, we are also in Michigan, but still. This is also where we have the Easter Bunny comment, because when he says pagan, I don't know how they connect this to Christmas.
Yes, because Sam is like, oh, it's like a pagan thing, and Dean's like, why are they focusing on Christmas? And Sam's like, well, because a lot of pagan rituals, like, became Christmas. And he's like, what? Next you're gonna tell me the Easter Bunny's Jewish?
And you're like, King, that wasn't even funny.
No, but I have great things to tell you about one Jesus Christ.
This is objectively funny, considering that all of this is being written into an actual gospel of the Lord as we speak. Just to remind everyone, in the story of Supernatural, it is being beamed into the head of a prophet who is writing the Gospel of Winchester that everyone is reading, thinking that it is a pulp novel that is fiction, but it is not. So, they are talking about shit they don't understand about the Bible while they're being written into the next book of the Bible, the sequel, one might say, into the Winchester-Verse, one might say. I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to call the episode Into the Winchester-Verse.
Yep. Across the Winchester-Verse.
Across the Winchester-Verse. So, November 5th, 2020 canon event.
You can't say this. Get out of here.
In every universe, he has to go to super hell.
I like to believe that there's a universe where where instead of going to super hell, they just kissed and they have a baby and now they live happily ever after. The end.
Call the CW Miguel O'Hara because he would never let that happen.
I'm gonna have to tag this fucking episode as spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse.
But that was fucking funny, okay?
No, it was funny is the problem, but it was a spoiler.
Okay. So anyway, now that we've been pagan phobic on Supernatural, which it will not be the first time. This is the first time, but not the last. We are back. We are in the motel, and Dean once again suggests that they celebrate Christmas. It seems like, okay, why do you keep bringing this up? Like, you haven't mentioned this for years. And Dean's like, well, I want to celebrate this year because it's my last year on this mortal plane. And Sam, selfish bitch that he is, this is one of Sam's biggest flop moments. Sam's like, well, I can't do that for that reason. Like, it'll make me too sad. And I'm like, maybe it's not fucking about you. Like, I'm sorry, your brother sacrificed himself so that you could live. You can celebrate one Christmas with him, asshole. It's a Sam flop moment. Sorry.
I wouldn't say it's his biggest flop, but it's definitely a flop.
Like, okay, being the vessel for Lucifer, that was pretty bad. This was worse. Sorry. We immediately flash back to 1991. And, Sam is once again asking Dean, like, when is Dad gonna be home for Christmas, whatever, and Dean's making up some bullshit, and Sam's like, listen, I know. And Dean's like, what do you know? What do you know? And Sam pulls out their dad's journal, and he's like, I read this. And Dean's like, you're not supposed to have read that. And he's like, our monster's real. And Dean immediately goes into, no, what are you talking about? Whatever. And Sam is like, so they're real. Because I read this in the journal. And that's when Dean reluctantly tells him. And he's like, yeah. And our dad is a hunter. And he kills them. And heartbreakingly, in this little speech, he's like, our dad's a superhero. Like, you know, he protects us from them, whatever. Like, this is Dean at his most, like, idolizing his dad. Which is so fucking heartbreaking because you're like, fuck you, John Winchester. You raggedy fucking bitch. Can't even be there for your fucking kids because you're on your little revenge heist. Hunting whatever monster of the week is not helping you enact revenge for your wife, and you're just away from your fucking kids. Kill yourself. Anyway.
And you couldn't have even, like, left them with Bobby or, like, found someone to, like, babysit them so they weren't alone on Christmas. Like, we know they are friends with a priest. He's probably doing midnight mass or whatever for Christmas.
No, but you make Dean be the babysitter, and I think in this flashback, Sam is like, I know why you sleep with a gun under your pillow. Is it because the monsters are real? How old is he? 12?
And
he sleeps with a gun under his pillow?
1991. I think he would have been, I don't know. Fuck, I can't do math.
I can't remember what year he was born. But fuck you, John Winchester. And he's like, our dad is a superhero who would protect us. And Sam, logically, is like, well, if they're coming for dad, like, they could come for us. Like, that's dangerous, is whatever. And he's like, no, like, dad's always going to be here for us. Like, dad's always going to keep them away from us, whatever. And you're like, well, we know that doesn't happen. You're like, oh, this shit hurted. And he's like, so every time, like, dad said that there weren't monsters under my bed, and he's like, yeah, there weren't, because dad looked first. And you're like, oh, I'm starting to cry. This shit hurted. Uh-oh. And Sam starts asking all these questions. He's like, is Santa real? And Dean's like, no, obviously. And he's like, what about the Easter Bunny? He's like, no. And Sam's like, he's kind of sad. I feel like later in another episode, we deal with Sam's kind of thing of him being really sad that, like, there are no, like, nice, magical, supernatural things. There's only, like, mean things and monsters, and how sad that makes him. And, like, it has to do with, like, his faith or whatever. Like, especially I feel like that's tested when we get to see, like, angels and stuff. It's, like, genuinely fucking sad. And you see that when he's a kid here as well. And Sam gets really upset because this is... we talked about this when we talked about the Winchesters, and, like, this is a thing that they have to deal with, like, whenever they talk to people, whatever. Like, this is their, like, opening... This is his, like, I found out monsters are real moment. And it changes his life. And he turns over and he, like, cries himself to sleep. And, like, Dean doesn't know what to do with that, whatever. And you're like, oh, he doesn't like Christmas because, like, that's when his innocence was basically gone. You're like, oh, wow. This shit fucking hurted. Okay. I'm in pain. This sucks. We come back to the present day. And the brothers are like, okay, so we figured out that this Christmas shop has been selling these fucking wreaths with this meadowsweet herb in it. So they go to the shop, they talk to this guy, and they're, like, trying to be sly about it. And they're like, oh, like, we heard this was really popular, like, these wreaths, and we're at these people's house, like, what was it called? And he's like, I sell a lot of wreaths here. Can you be more specific? They're being coy, they're being whatever. And they're like, it smelled really good. I think it had this herb called meadowsweet. And he's like, oh, yeah, like, I know about that one. Unfortunately, all sold out. And they're like, yeah, isn't meadowsweet, like, kind of, like, expensive? Like, it's, like, kind of a rare find. He's like, yeah, so there was this woman in town. She really likes to really make wreaths. And, like, she actually donated them all. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. This woman would donate these expensive wreaths. What's that about? And you're like, oh, like, what's their names? And they're like, oh, like, her name is Madge Kerrigan, whatever. They find where she lives, and they go visit Madge and Edward Kerrigan, her husband. They open the door, and it is, like, perfect suburban Christmas town. Christmas house. This is very funny to me when I watched it for the first time, because this is exactly how my grandmother's house looks. It's like a Macy's.
Yeah, I will say, shout out to my mom. Hope she's listening, maybe, if she figured out how to do it on her own without me there. Our house has a little holiday village, which I know a lot of people have, but ours is, like, crazy. It's given a bit of a professional decorator vibe.
Yeah, I fear that white American suburban family Christmas, it's on another level. It's Armageddon. And that is exactly how this woman's fucking house looks. And she opens the door, and she's also looks like she is straight out of, like, a Christmas special from the 50s. Like, she is like the perfect, and she's like, I don't know, she looks like she's in, like, her 60s or something. Like, she's like an older woman, whatever, but she's like perfect. And her husband also comes to the door, and he talks in, like, a transatlantic accent.
She talks like this, like, she's so excited to see you. And he walks over and he talks like this. Oh, boys, it's Christmas. And it's like, they're the most, like, stereotypical, if you Googled, like, Christmas family.
Yeah, and he had like a corncob pipe, and he's talking in a transatlantic accent, and Dean and Sam are like, okay, what the fuck? And they're like, oh, like, you know, we play bridge every week and whatever, and they're like, oh, like, we'd love to get one of your wreaths, and they're like, oh, we just ran out, sorry. And they're like, okay, thanks, bye. And they start to do some research, and they're like, interesting. So, last year in Seattle, where they used to live, 3 men went missing. They then talked to Bobby. And I think this is where Bobby calls them stupid. Or Bobby's like, they're pagan gods. We never find out what gods they are.
They're the pagan ones. You know, the ones that all the pagans love.
And you're like, can you be more specific?
What I also love about this is that Bobby isn't in this episode. Sam just is like, I just got off the phone with Bobby and he told us that we were idiots. I'm like,
yeah.
We couldn't pay him to be here.
Yeah, I guess not. The other piece of this that's crazy, especially since this is a fucking episode about family, and Bobby should be there. Stupid ass. And Bobby's like, oh yeah, they're pagan gods. You can kill them with evergreen wood stakes. I'm like, they're fucking gods. Like, I'm sorry, the Christian hegemony in this fucking show, when they're like, oh yeah, like the other gods, you can just kill them like regular monsters. And this is a problem in this whole fucking episode, where they're basically treated like regular fucking monsters. They die, whatever, like regular monsters. I'm like, oh, but when you meet like angels and like fucking other shit, you know, in this show, like they have powers and shit. But they're like vampires or like witches. Like they're treated like
just
nothing.
Kind of,
like, they're gods.
They're just kind of there. They don't even. I couldn't even tell you a power that they have.
Like, the power of Christmas cheer, yeah. I guess.
The power of being
they're
mega cunty. Like, they're kind of fun. I liked them. I was rooting for them.
They are. Well, their power is also controlling the weather, because there's the temperate weather that we saw.
That's true.
That's really all they've got, apparently. I just think it's funny that it's like, oh yeah, you could just kill them with a stake, and you're like, girl, what? Huh? So, the boys, they return. They break in. They're going around. They're making jokes about how, like, the furniture is covered in plastic. There's little cookies everywhere. Like, it's the perfect Christmas home. But there's nobody around. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? And of course, they find a creepy basement. And they open the basement. They go down in the basement. And guess what? There's human remains in the basement. And the latest victim is still in that sack that we saw that Krampus-looking figure get before. This is where I get confused, because it's like, so were they summoning Krampus and he's just like connected to them, or was like Edward dressing up as Krampus?
I assumed that he was doing it. Or she was doing it. I don't know. Equal rights. It's this episode. Let's not get caught up in the minutia of how it actually happened, or what the plot was, or anything. It doesn't matter. It's about Christmas joy.
It's about Christmas joy and being super fucking sad about Sam and Dean's childhood, and also saying "fuck you" to pagans. Apparently, damn bitch. They were like, yeah, if you're not Christian on this CW network, fuck you. The war on Christmas, am I right?
It's okay if you're Jewish, as long as you're the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, apparently. Anyways, so there's a victim in a sack. Madge and Edward are like, in their like creepy little voices, they're like, oh no, guess we have to attack you. And it's like, it's all very funny. And they immediately knock them out and take them captive. Like, immediately Sam and Dean get got. They wake up bound to chairs in the kitchen with like all the gingerbread houses and cookies and shit around them. It's kind of funny.
No, it's so iconic. I hate to say it. I love these guys.
Yeah, because this is a very memorable episode. the Kerrigans, they're like, yeah, like we're pagan gods. Like people used to sacrifice themselves willingly to us. Like people wanted to be you. Like we used to have thousands in tributes every year, and they're like, you suck. And they're like, we used to have thousands in tributes every year, and now we only kill like a couple people, and we still do our job of keeping the nice weather. So maybe shut the fuck up. And you're like, you know what? Kind of cunty of you. And they're like, you know what? People used to worship us, and then that little upstart Jesus came around. And Christianity. And then people were burning down our temples, and we were running for our lives. Okay,
also, the way that he says this is, well, you know, when this Jesus figure shows up, I'm like...
And he's saying it in this transatlantic accent, too. It's... Honestly, it's kind of funny.
It's so good. I'm obsessed with this. The direction is also very fun. Like, I just liked how this episode was produced.
Like, and they're having fun. Like, they're, like, cooking and baking, like, while they're saying this, and Dean and Sam are, like, tied to chairs. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, you know what? And then we tried to blend in. And he's like, what did we do? And they're like, we assimilated. They were like, and you know what? We only kill a couple of people. We played bridge every Tuesday.
She was like, oh, honey, what is that word that you told me? He's like, assimilate. And she's like, we assimilated. I'm like, you guys are so real.
Like, I'm obsessed with you guys. And then they're like, okay, so now we have to start the ritual sacrifice. It's all about the ritual. And I'm like, as a pagan, fuck you. It is all about the ritual, bitch. Anyway. And they're like, they do that fucking supernatural thing where, like, to take blood, instead of, like, doing it in a normal way, they, like, slash right across someone's arm or hand. And you're like, that's not very efficient, but okay. And then they pull out one of Sam's fingernails because they need a fingernail. You're like, holy Jesus Christ. It gets quite gory. Then they're like, oh, we need a tooth. They go to use a fucking pliers to take out Dean's tooth, and they are interrupted by the doorbell ringing. And he's like, are you gonna get that? And they're like, ah, shit. I guess we need to get that. So they're like, hold on a second. And they go to the door, and they're like, hi! Again, super cunty. They're like, hey, and their neighbor is like, oh my god, hey, like, I brought you a fruit cake. Like, are you still on for bridge? And they're like, oh my god, yeah, totally. They're like the picture of just like nice neighbors, whatever. And then they're like, and just like, oh, like, why don't you come caroling with us, whatever? And he's like, oh, my back is hurting, but thank you so much for the invitation. And they're like, bye. And then they immediately turn around. They drop the fruitcake on the floor, which is kind of asshole. I'm like, your neighbors were being really nice. And then they are like, okay, back to torturing Sam and Dee. Again, objectively hilarious.
As they should. I would love to torture them more. I think that they need to be tortured more. Rip all of his fingernails out. Let's go.
They need to be tortured more? I mean, all you need to do is look at the archive of our own. They've been tortured enough.
I think about this one, I don't remember if it was a Tumblr post. I think it was a Tumblr post. It could have been a tweet. But it was like, generally speaking, I don't agree with alpha, beta, omega dynamics, but I love anything that makes Jensen Ackles' life harder.
Considering that Omega-verse came not from Destiel, but from J2 fanfiction.
It's so dark. Okay.
It's so beautiful. Anyways, so they're like, okay, we got the blood, we got the fingernails, whatever. Let's go. They come back. Sam and Dean are not bound. And now we get to a Home Alone reference.
This is what's great. I fucking know that Chuck was like, oh my god, these guys, I have to write in a neighbor interrupting Deus Ex neighbor. Like...
And he's like, how can I do... And also because Supernatural, like, they cannot stop themselves from doing a pop culture reference. Like, they're physically unable. Much like me. They're physically unable from doing it. They're like, we must do a Home Alone reference. I'm surprised they didn't do a Die Hard reference, frankly. There might be one in there that we didn't notice. And basically, Sam and Dean home alone, the two of them. They trap them in the kitchen. They close all the doors. And a fight ensues, and then they're like, okay, we need to get evergreen stakes. So they, like, rip down the Christmas tree and they're, like, sawing at it, whatever. I'm like, didn't you guys already have stakes? But, like, okay, I'm confused, but sure. And they get their ass. Pretty easily, in fact. I'm like, they're gods. Like, okay, I guess. So then we go back to another flashback. We're in 1991. Dean wakes Sam up. It is clearly the night of Christmas. He's like, well, and he's like, oh, like, while you were sleeping, like, Dad came by and he left us a tree and presents. Like, look, clearly he is lying. Like, clearly he is lying. And you're like, this is very young Dean, like, trying to do something special for Sam. It is fucking heartbreaking. Sam goes to open his presents, and they are random. The first present is a Barbie. Specifically, the collectible Sapphire Barbie. Now, as a person born in the 90s who was really into collectible Barbies, and I believe the Sapphire Barbie was one of the Millennium Barbies. If we may need to look at, or one of the like Christmas special Barbies, because every year I wanted one of those. I had the Millennium Barbie. I had some very specific ones. Obviously this is 1991. This was before I was born, but I wanted the Sapphire Barbie. I knew it existed, because that's my birthstone. Okay, so when Sam opened the Sapphire Barbie, I was like, oh, I would kill for that. And if I was the little girl that fucking Dean stole it from, I would have killed him. I would have killed him. And then we could have avoided Supernatural. Yeah, when did Sapphire Barbie
So there's
come
a
out?
couple different Sapphire Barbies. Like, I think that Sapphire Barbie was, like, there was, like, she was, like, a yearly girly. Like, she was a lot like their holiday doll, but she's, like, Sapphire Barbie.
Okay, so maybe I did actually have her then. Oh, I definitely had her. Sam Winchester, I'm beating your ass, because that was my fucking girl.
Sorry that a chick present wasn't good enough for you.
Yeah, they call it a chick present. But basically, he opens Sapphire Barbie and a sparkly baton. I love the 90s. And he's like, hey, Dean, where did you actually get these? And Dean's like, yeah, I stole it from one of the nice houses up the street. And you're like, this is really sad. And Sam's like, okay, well, I have a present. I meant to give it to Dad, but he's clearly not here, so I'm gonna give it to you. And it's like, it's wrapped in like newspaper. It's like the present that he had Bobby help him get earlier. And he gives it to Dean. And Dean's like, no, like, this is for Dad, whatever. And then he finally takes it and he opens it. And it's the Samulet. It's the amulet that Dean in the early seasons is wearing. And this is the origin of it. And I'm crying and you're crying and we're all crying. That's why it's called the Samulet, because that's what he gives him. I believe he
saw me crying, then he crewed too, and we both crowed.
Yeah. Do I own the Samulet? Yes, I do.
Don't we all? I do too.
I will also say, like, I do believe that he loses the Samulet, like, right after this. Like, when he dies and is buried and goes to hell, when he crawls back out, he doesn't have it. And he, like, doesn't have it for the rest of Supernatural, which I thought was really sad. I was like, where's the fucking Samulet? I think that's stupid. Yeah, you're crying, I'm crying. This is supposed to be the stupid little Christmas special. Instead, it's like the origin story of the fucking Samulet. And you're like, oh, okay, I see how it is. We come back to the present day. And Dean comes back to the motel room. He was buying beer. And he finds that Sam has decorated the motel room with a tree. You know, it's kind of like dinky. There's like air fresheners, whatever, but he made eggnog, whatever. And it's like reminiscent of like when he tried to decorate for his brother when they were little. And he's like, I thought, like, we do Christmas, whatever, because, like, that's something. And he's like, you know, is the eggnog too strong, whatever. And they have this just, like, very quiet, like, moment of very normal, like, they don't talk about their feelings that much, whatever. They give each other presents, and it's just, like, funny, like, gas station presents.
Yeah, like, Sam opens up he's like, oh my god, you got me a present. He opens up, he's like, oh my god, skim mags. And and shaving cream. Like, and then he's like, yeah, I got you something. And Dean's like, oh, oil for the car and candy for me, love.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, wow, men.
It's so iconic.
It's kind of, and Sam starts to, like, go to say something, whatever, and then, like, it's fucking sad, okay, this moment. And then he's like, all right, like, let's just have, like, a normal Christmas, whatever. And he's like, do you want to watch a game? And they're like, sure. And then it, like, zooms out, Christmas special style, whatever, that they're, like, watching a game together, whatever. But, like, you're crying, I'm crying, everyone's crying. Like, this is obviously, like, Dean's last Christmas, whatever. Like, I'm having a fucking moment. Like, this is supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be a good little time. We're supposed to be having little jokes with the pagan gods. And instead, I'm having an emotional little moment. And this is, as I said before, like, this is a lot like the scene in the other one of just, like, this, like, quiet little moment at the end of the two of them. And I don't know if they kept doing stuff like this because they thought, like, I don't know, maybe the show will get canceled and this is it. And you know what? If it had, it would have gone out with a fucking bang. Because emotionally, a lot was happening here. I'm trying to look at if there's any...
Well, I have a fun fact about this episode. There's a part at the end where they're having, like, eggnog together, and Dean takes a sip and kind of makes a face like it's really strong. And the reason for that is that because Jared spiked the prop eggnog with rum. So that was his genuine reaction. My genuine reaction to that information.
I didn't know that was, like, this episode. Oh my god.
Jared Padalecki, you are a freak.
Did you know that on the back of the motel door it says the Thomas Kinkade Suite, and the painting is reminiscent of a Thomas Kinkade painting? Oh, I also forgot that in another episode where they have non-Christian gods, apparently the Roman goddess Fortuna says that the deities were created by the Christian god to essentially take the fall when something went wrong. I remember when that aired, and I was like, I'm sorry? That can't be real. That is the most insane lore choice I've ever heard.
Supernatural, I hate you.
Why can't you just be like in Percy Jackson when they're like, a lot of people's belief systems exist side by side, and it's powered mostly by human belief, and we're not really gonna dig into it further than that. In Supernatural, they're like, actually, if you're not Christian, kill yourself.
Yeah.
And you're like,
no,
okay,
they really do not have a lot of this. I mean, we've said it once before. We've said it plenty of times before. It's basically Bible fan fiction, and they're like, you stupid fuck. If you don't get it. If you don't get it, you don't get it, and the show's not for you. Love it.
And when we say Bible fan fiction, we do specifically mean Bible, because they're speaking of, like, is there any reference to the fact of, like, Jewish or Muslim people? No, there is.
And you know what? Honestly, good, because I don't want any other religion to have to deal with the bullshit that Supernatural pulls.
Yeah, I do. I actually feel like Supernatural is Christianity's penance. Mm-hmm. It's not enough, but I do think that the harm that Supernatural has done, I think to Christianity, I think is in some way it's penance. It's like, you brought this on the world, well, see what you have wrought. Every other religion, I'm so fucking sorry, that shares similar texts and similar texts and stuff, run fucking far away.
Get away from Robert Singer. Get away from Eric Kripke.
Anyway,
I really liked this episode is the problem.
Anyway, yeah, the problem is that both of these episodes are quite good, despite the pagan phobia.
Yeah.
The pagan phobia.
Which, I hate to say par for the course for Supernatural. What? Yeah, Supernatural did something weird and problematic? What? Oh my god. It's a Christmas miracle.
Not a Christmas miracle.
No, I mean, I feel like these two really delve into, like, the the finality of the fact that Dean's like, dude, I'm going to hell straight up. Like, it's not looking good for me.
Which, I will say, it really does I think, hot take, because I can't not talk about Castiel, it really does add to, like, the craziness of the first episode of season 4, where they're like, he's been pulled from hell, and there's this crazy being who's like, hey, girly pop, because we just spent, like, at least 13 episodes of a season being like, in the arms of literally the
all
angels.
16 episodes of this season. Like that is the main thing in this season. Like,
they're like, Dean's fucking dying,
like,
bro.
Bitch is not coming back. And then they're like, actually...
And then he comes back in the cuntiest way possible. Or with the cuntiest
Yeah,
person
he comes back in the gayest way possible, so...
I can't believe I said in the arms of the angel. I'm like, yeah, he sure does.
Good lord.
Oh
my gosh, sorry, I'm yawning.
Someone has to stop me. Anyways,
I think that's about it for today. In fact, thank you so much for listening. If you guys are interested in more supernatural content or us content, you can follow us on social media. We're at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, all that stuff. You can also ask us questions, supernatural or otherwise, in our TikTok Q&A or by emailing us. We're themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy listening to us suffer, rate and review the show, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, Overcast, etc., anywhere that lets you leave a review. And tell a friend. It really helps people discover our show. It helps get us out there. We always appreciate it. If you want to hear more from us, we are two of the co-hosts of Rube Helps Pod Race, a queer Star Wars podcast. We have a lot of fun stuff going on right now, so go check that out. And without further ado, we will see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer-baiting things, the supernatural business.